Hello! Welcome to the Mindbuffs Podcast. I am your host, Matt Demoissac, and my co-host today is going to be Alex Schinke.
Hello, everyone.
And our special guest, center stage, light shining brightly, is Megan Dart. And we are excited to have her today because she is the executive director of the Fringe Festival. And you guys might know that in about a week's time, the Fringe Festival begins.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I just want to give a little bit of an intro in terms of who Megan is, and we're just going to get into getting to know each other and ask questions that are both going to tap into both her creative side and her business side as a leader and an executive director for the Fringe. So we'll be able to tap into a few different aspects of Megan's life. So outside of being the executive director at the Fringe, and I know you've been at the Fringe for quite some time as well.
I have, almost a decade.
Almost a decade,
believe it or not,
yeah.
I know.
Yes. You also have, you're a co-artistic producer with Catch the Keys.
I am.
Yes, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And how I wanted to kind of introduce you was actually a quote that you wrote, and I just read that and I went, oh my God, this is all I need to know about Megan. She sounds like such a cool person.
I'm excited to know what you chose.
So, pick this from the old interweb. You wrote, I think, that we don't just want artists to visit the Fringe Theatre art barns. We want them to inhabit it, wake it up, fill the quietest corners with all the noise of art making. This is a safer space for brave ideas and big artistic risk. This is where chance encounters grow into meaningful collaborations, where messy first inklings become brilliant realizations.
Yeah.
Boom. That is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Where does that come from? That whole spirit in the project, in the thing that you're passionate about, kind of come from?
I often say I am an artist who is raised by entrepreneurs. And artistic risk-taking is such a big part of being an artist, whether you are writing a show and putting it on stage in front of an audience, or recording a piece of music, or creating a piece of visual art, you are taking a risk. And the biggest gift that Fringe can offer in and out of the festival, knowing that, we steward this big, beautiful venue 365 days a year, is to offer our infrastructure and to offer our human resource and our expertise so that independent artists can excel and reach that next stage of their career. And so we focus a lot on what it means to kick open the doors, keep the lights on, give, artists access to space. I've been an independent producer for my entire career, and I can tell you that an invitation to come into a clean, equipped, supported space is the difference between making it.
Yeah. No, I love that because I know a lot of smaller artistic communities and just fine art communities where there's the heart and the want and the will to be able to have more of a community experience in sharing in the arts. But what I've often seen is lacking on the business side, on the entrepreneurial skills of how I can practically run an operation, an organization, and a team to be able to facilitate that in a practical way. So you made a comment that you're an artist raised by entrepreneurs. So what is that kind of entrepreneurial background for you?
I'm very lucky. My parents are very successful business folks, and they have shared a lot of those lessons.
Awesome.
And tangential to my artistic career, I've also had the opportunity to build my own, career portfolio as a communications professional and as a consultant. And so you learn sort of those tips and tricks along the way. But truly, as an independent artist, you learn how to manage a budget. You learn how to manage a staff, a team of folks. You learn how to market yourself, how to engage with your audience, how to grow your product to market. It is truly from conception to realization. You kind of learn those things along the way. And not all artists always have the business acumen or the terminology to give framework to that. But truly, those are skills that are so translatable regardless of what industry you're in. And I'm so grateful because it has been my experience as an independent creator and as a festival producer where I've learned all of those skills, and I've been able to cut my teeth in really safe environments where we can fail forward, right? Where you can take those lessons you learn along the way and reapply them and come back and do better next time. And I love that the arts gives us that playground that really sort of celebrates that risk taking in that way.
What has been your biggest like aha moment then?
Oh man, like
that's a really complex
question.
Yeah.
What has been my biggest aha moment? I think that you can build so much out of nothing. You know, the arts. I talk about this a lot, but like we've been taught to thrive on this notion of scarcity, when in fact we actually are a very abundant industry. And truly abundant because of the people who are attracted to this industry. And so if you have a solid team, if you have folks who have that yes and mentality, you can do anything on a very, very tight budget. I joke often, like the Fringe Festival is built on a lot of heart and a lot of skill and some gaff tape and some zip ties. You know, we're doing it on a dream.
I love it. Like even the way that you describe like failing forward and like the risk taking, it honestly sounds like you're talking about like a sport. Like I hear more people within athletics kind of using language like that as why they love like being in sports. I haven't heard too often people describing an arts community having that same kind of culture. So like, did you play sports growing up at all? Or like, how did you realize that like also the art scene can include like these kinds of like cultural pieces that are foundational to growth?
Like both of those things. I was involved in competitive cheer for more than half my life. I spent 20 years. I was an athlete. I was on the first all-star team in Alberta. I coached for a long time.
Do it.
So that is in my DNA deeply.
Yeah.
But the sense of collaboration that exists, particularly in theater as an art form, requires so much trust.
It does.
And you really need to trust that your teammates are doing the best they can with the information they have, with the skill they bring to the table. But like, I'm a playwright and you know, a marketer and a producer. I'm not a technician, but our techs in the room absolutely know how to run a safe space, how to make sure that lighting board is doing what it should be doing, you know, that our audience can hear our actors on stage. We trust that our actors are bringing their whole self to that experience, that they are, you know, bringing life and vibrancy to the words that are being performed on stage. Like it's such a collaborative art form, and there's so much inherent trust in it. That we just extend that truly to the festival model. You know, we have more than 200 staff out on site and 1,000 volunteers who make the Fringe Festival possible. It truly, truly takes a village, but there is just so much dedication, care, skill, heart that comes from all of those folks who make it possible. And we all operate from that place of trust.
Like the Fringe is touted as being like the biggest Fringe festival in North America, 43 years running. Is that a badge of honor? Is that pride, or does that act as like pressure to kind of like maintain that status?
I don't think it's pressure. I think it's truly pride. And what happens here over the 11 days of festival in Edmonton doesn't happen anywhere else in the world like that. We're the largest, longest running in North America. We're one of the top 5 worldwide, alongside the original Fringe Festival in Edinburgh. But every Fringe Festival is completely different. It has its own personality. So whether you go to a Fringe here in Edmonton or in Vancouver or Toronto, Orlando, you name it, they all have their own quirky personality. And ours is Edmonton grown, and there's such pride of place in this festival. And our audiences are so invested. You know, we have audience who have been coming to the festival all 43 years.
I believe it.
We have
I believe it.
volunteers who are like in their 4th decade of volunteering. There's just been this incredibly passionate community that has built itself around this festival that I think, you know, it's going to be here for generations to come.
What made you decide to get involved with the Fringe?
You know, the Fringe, I like to think of it as like this beautiful collision. I moved to Edmonton in the very early 2000s to go to school to finish my degree, fully not intending to stay here. You know, I had bounced between the prairies and the coast, and my folks were back on the coast. And I was like, I'm going to get my degree. I'm going back to the ocean. And then I showed up in Edmonton, and that first summer I was here, I went to the Fringe as a patron. And I was so blown away by the festival spirit that is alive and well in Edmonton, and very quickly got to know the arts community here, and sort of kicked open so many doors. I switched degrees because I realized like I had started in an education program, and I had a teacher at the U of A sat me down one day and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And I had a moment of like, "Oh no, she's found out I'm a fraud. Like, what am I doing here?" But she directed me to the professional writing program at Grant MacEwan, and I fell so in love with that program and realized that being a writer is what I wanted to do with my life. And through that avenue, met the arts community here and fell in love. Like, I was so immediately welcomed in. I've said this often, but with Catch the Keys particularly, I don't think we could do what we have done with that small, mighty, scrappy organization anywhere else. Like, Edmonton really celebrates that risk-taking. And there's such a deep-rooted commitment to mentorship here. And to helping you realize your dream. So yeah, it was sort of like an accidental meeting, Fringe and I, but then I went on to be a volunteer, and then I was a reviewer for many years, back in the day when we used to review all 200 shows in the opening weekend of festival, which is a bananas way to see the festival. And then I started picking up summer contracts, and then I joined the team full-time in a communications capacity, and that was 9 years ago now, and stepped into the ED role right at the height of the pandemic, which is a really wild time to step into a leadership role. But I'm so grateful for the team we have at Fringe, and just for the tenacity of that organization too. Yeah,
really cool. I guess we don't ever need to convince people that are already in the fine art community that love the arts and have already experienced the Fringe to like come and see it. But like, what would be the value for people who don't have exposure and experience with like going to something like the Fringe and experiencing the arts in that way? Like, what would be the pull and the draw for those kinds of people to try it out for the first time?
Oh, there's so many good reasons to come to Fringe for the first time. And I promise once you're there, you're not going to want to leave. I truly believe that the arts have impact. They bring vibrancy to our cities. It's what makes cities like Edmonton a place to live. You want to live, work, and play. I mean, there's the business side of it, certainly. The arts drive economy. The 11 days of our festival brings a $16 million economic impact to the city just in those 11 days. That's without even thinking about the 500 other events we support outside of festival every year. We create jobs. We hire 200 arts workers. We engage 1,000 volunteers. So there's the nuts and bolts of what we do. But I think most importantly, the thing that I value most about Fringe is that it's truly a celebration of storytelling and connection. Because stories matter. And stories allow us to explore new perspectives. It allows us to see things from a different point of view. Also, seeing your story reflected on stage can be one of the most powerful forms of like support and validation. And so I think that there's just so much that the arts have to offer in terms of that connection point and building community.
Even from a psychological perspective, we know that storytelling is one of the most effective ways to remember things, to be able to integrate like new ideas and new concepts to like a permanent part of your being. And storytelling just like falls off further and further and further with the advent of social media, just splicing like 5 to 10 second little videos together, right? And there's obviously creative ways to engage in that as well. But I'm curious for you, like now that you're kind of at this stage in your leadership as an executive director, how do you balance the leadership and the management of this big, beautiful thing and like time for your own individual practice?
Yeah, that is a work in progress.
Okay.
I will be totally honest.
Yeah.
I will be totally honest.
Yeah.
I think the blessing and the curse of following your passion as your livelihood means that you are sometimes dedicating more of your time to that thing than is maybe healthy. But I also am so fortunate. My partner also works in the arts, and so we have this very flexible understanding of how we support each other in that work. Our daughter spends a lot of time in our theaters and spends a lot of time around creative people, and I appreciate that I am in an industry that allows space for that. I was one of the first people to take maternity leave at Fringe, and I came back with my kid on my hip and said, "Okay, y'all, like we work in the arts. I don't make enough money to pay for childcare, so she's here with me.
Yeah.
But it really did allow me to build an incredibly flexible work schedule around my life. And so, we don't prescribe to that sort of Monday to Friday 9 to 5. A lot of folks in our office can flex their hours depending on their needs. Yeah. Something we celebrate often is that we all have big, beautiful lives outside of the excellent work we do together, and we need to honor that. And so really good at tapping in and out when we need to. And remembering too that I'm an artist at my core. And so giving myself time to step away from the work of supporting art to be an artist is really important. So those moments when I can go back into the rehearsal hall and work on a new piece that I've written, or get in a room and collaborate with other artists, allows me to come back to the administrative part of my job with more capacity and more ferocity and creativity. And that is something that we really do prioritize among our staff. Like our core staff at Fringe, we're a mighty team of 20. We work year-round together. Most of us are artists. So, in the winter months, we'll go stage manage a show or go produce something or go take a workshop. And I think that's what makes us better at serving community. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So I know at the Fringe, I believe I have written down 216.
Yeah, 216 shows. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that comes with a lot of moving parts and stress. So I guess what are some of the challenges that you think you'll face? Again, holding such a big amount of shows, right? In such a short amount of time, right? And how do you think you and the Fringe staff and volunteers will help?
Yeah, I mean, it is no small feat. It is more than 200 shows. It's 38 venues. We have 1,600 artists. It works out to more than 1,500 performances over the 11 days. We welcome 500,000 site visits over those 11 days. There are so many moving parts. But everyone is so good at their jobs. The artists bring their best selves to what they do, and they are there to connect with the audience, and the audience shows up to support them. And the volunteers truly are there in service of community, and our staff are, they're constantly going. I'm not going to lie, festival days are big, they're long, sometimes they're hard. But they're also joyous. We tell our staff often, when festival reaches this fever pitch where the site is loud and you've got people everywhere and you have those moments of overwhelm, but those are also the most important moments to step out into the park and take a look around at all the joy that you are helping create. Because there is no other job like this. I pinch myself every day that this is my profession. Yeah.
One of the most common conversations that I have with people in the fine art community, whether they're actors or print or digital media, performing artists, is how to turn one's passion, one's artistic abilities into something that can actually sustain finance, that can sustain things like that. Now, obviously, you did have the benefit, myself, of kind of having some entrepreneurs. I mean, Alex is the same way. We all have entrepreneurial parents. That really helps. So we had some insider info that lots of people don't get. But what things have you learned along the way that make it easier for artists to be able to make a living through their creative skill set?
Yeah. For me, truly, mentorship was key. Looking to folks who have built long-lasting and sustainable careers in this industry. And often it just starts with hey, can we go for coffee? Can I pick your brain? The worst they're going to say is no. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes enthusiastically. But truly finding those mentors, I think, in the arts specifically, obviously granting is such a big part of what supports our work. So learning how to write a good grant, learning how to build a budget that you can stick to truly, learning how to be flexible in your project approaches. I think particularly with theater too, things change the minute you get into the room. Project changes scope. You suddenly are solving for problems you didn't anticipate. All of those things, and then the audience brings a whole new energy to that as well. And I think too, truly building connection with your collaborators and with your audience. With Catch the Keys particularly, we are so grateful. We've been doing what we've been doing for almost 18 years now, and we have such a dedicated base of audience who come back and see everything we do. And I make a point of being the first and last person at the top and tail of every show to say thank you. But they're the reason why we get to do what we do. And so, nurturing those relationships is really important. But yeah, and also like just being unafraid to fail.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's something that even if artists are aware that obviously I should be like courageous and try things and be okay with failure, but that is often the hang up for artists is like, what are people going to think about me? Like, what's the audience reaction going to be? Is this going to land? Well, if that's what you're thinking or feeling, it won't land. So there has to be a full.
And also, can we just like dash the notion of perfection? Yes. We're never going to get there.
No one's going to like you. I literally think of perfection as being like evil. Like it's just straight up
so
vile
unattainable.
And toxic. And
I have a big sign in my office that's hanging on my wall that I look at every day that just says like process builds process. This is not about ever reaching an end goal. This is about just like learning how to do it better. Yeah.
One of the most common things that gets in the way of our clients and honestly most of our business like leaders is that subconsciously they have some part of their definition of success that includes like perfection, needing to be perfect. And perfection is a defense mechanism. It's something that we learn as a young kid. If I'm perfect, then nothing bad can happen. So it might work for like moments of time, but into adulthood, especially as a creative, like creativity and openness is on one end of the spectrum, and like perfectionism is like on the opposite end.
Absolutely.
And like I see so many artists trying to find a way to squeeze the two in the middle.
We have a saying, and it goes on like every Fringe policy, which is the most dry version of creativity. We have a little phrase that just says "subject to instant improvement," and that's something that we carry forward with us. Is this is never going to be finished? It will never be perfect. It is continually evolving. But we as creators are subject to that instant improvement. And so, we apply that to everything, whether it's policy or creativity or...
Like one of the other things that you had mentioned is really like community and relationship. And I know there's a lot of like tropes out there that like artists are like introverted and keep to themselves and like don't share a lot of their ideas and maybe less so in the presenting arts. But you do have to just find even just a couple people. It doesn't have to be like an army of people that you're connecting with, and you have to be that hustle culture person that's just like trying to run it to everyone because like that doesn't feel authentic either. But like I think from what you're telling us, like just find those people that know you, that believe in you, that support you, and that are competitive with you and not like competitive like at you.
Yeah. I think that is one thing that makes the Fringe model so unique. So we are one of 42 Fringe festivals in North America, and we are a founding member of the Canadian Association of Fringe Festivals, which is a bit of a misnomer. We represent festivals both sides of the border. But we have this incredibly tight-knit group of producers across the country whose only mission is to collaborate and share information. And to have that support group of folks that I can go to that I'm like, y'all, I am solving for this problem. How do we do it? How are you doing it in Toronto? How are you doing it in Montreal? And there is such a generosity of support and they bring such a collaborative spirit to those conversations. And it is truly about how do we make the movement, the Fringe Festival movement better? How do we continue to improve on this thing that was built as like Fringe is a protest? It was a grassroots do-it-yourself movement that was started in Edmonton, at least in 1982, with a couple bucks in Brian Paisley's back pocket. But it was there to support artists. And that spirit is still so alive and well in the DNA of Fringe festivals across the country. To be able to go to that group and be like, how do we do this together? Or even in the Edmonton community, there's such a spirit of collaboration and sharing. And, I was on the slam team for a couple of years. I had the good grace of being able to tour to other cities. And I remember getting there and talking to other artists, and they would be like, what do you mean you're performing poetry in art galleries and with dancers and musicians? And I was like, yeah, man, don't you do that? And they're like, no, what happens in Edmonton? And I was like, and I joke, there's something in the water here, but I think it's just the nature of our festival city and how mentorship has been woven into that. And I don't take for granted that that's very unique to this city.
Yeah, I mean, just this festival in general is just so unique, but it takes all the people over all the years to like sustain the growth and the impact that it has. So, yeah, it just sounds like such a fun project to be a part of.
It really is.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple times like building a safer community.
Yes.
And I know there's a is it Safer Space initiative?
Yes. Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we have a very robust Safer Spaces program. We are heading into the 8th year of the evolution of that program. But it was built on our commitment to community that fringing is for everyone and everyone is fringing. And we knew if we were going to say that, we had to stand behind it. And so what does it mean to radically welcome the community into the Fringe experience? And so it started first to as a channel to address harm that was happening within the community. Certainly, there's some power dynamic. There is some imbalance in the community. There have been instances of harm that needed to be honestly addressed and spoken about out loud. But what it's done now is it has helped champion this culture of care where we all take care of each other, where we all commit to one another to uphold a space where creativity can be valued, and acknowledging that you need to create a safer space that celebrates brave risk, and that takes a lot of vulnerability. And so this program, we've learned from it every year, but we have built the systems, the reporting channels. We have committees that serve that work, but it is extended into every corner of the festival now and continues to create this ripple effect with other festivals where we've seen things like our community care program has born out of that. We, have a team of folks who support our houseless and vulnerable community members in the area who are displaced by festival activity. We're a big urban festival. We take up public park spaces. We know that has an impact on our community. And so we built a program specifically dedicated to supporting those folks and making sure that they're being connected with the resources that they need, but also that they're being really, truly enthusiastically welcomed into the festival experience. A big part of Fringe is available for free. It's not ticketed. Anyone can come to the site. And we want to make sure that we are offering that in earnest, because we know, too, when we look after our most vulnerable, everyone is looked after. So, we're still learning. We are not experts in this work by any means, but I really do think it has shaped our philosophy around how we build community. Yeah.
No, it sounds like you just have so many different projects and like there's so many different things going on. So more from like the business side of things, I'm really curious, like, are you someone that sits down at the beginning of the year, or you look at your quarterlies and you're like, hey, like, what are our black and white objectives? Like, how are we achieving them? Are you someone that's very much connected to like goal setting, or are you more on the opposite end of that spectrum, someone that kind of picks a direction and goes like, something fun is over there, something exciting is over there, like let's pour our resources there and just see what happens? Like where are you kind of?
Certainly there is some black and white responsibility in managing an organization of our size. Like we are a $5.7 million organization. And so obviously that fiduciary responsibility is a big part of what we do. But I think too, we are offered such opportunity to approach our work in creative and thoughtful ways. We recently just came through a really incredible strategic planning process with the fine folks over at Y Station. But what came out of that was this realization that the way Fringe approaches its work is not linear. We are often engaging in multiple projects, reaching multiple goals all at the same time. So rather than set out our strategic priorities in A leads to B leads to C, we looked at it more as like an organic garden where everything was growing at the same time. So the success of our sunflowers over here is going to lead to the success of our vegetable garden on the other side. But it truly came from this place of understanding that we work with so many creative entrepreneurs who can truly see and seize opportunity as it comes up. And, to your point, like, yeah, we have all of these like social responsibility programs that we're running, but we also have things like Fringe Learn. We built our own online learning platform system to provide asynchronous training to our community because we realized that training 1,000 volunteers and 1,600 artists is a really hard thing to do. And so, we were able to build this responsive platform that allows us to offer art-based training. It's really rooted in storytelling. But again, it was just like, how do we seize these opportunities that serve our community, knowing that the needs of our community are going to continue to change over time? And Fringe is so nimble. That is our job. It's our job to be nimble. And so I truly think we're succeeding the most when we can be as responsive as possible. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is one far-fetched, outlandish goal that you or your team have had that, man, you would just love one day to be able to see that to fruition or see that accomplished?
Oh man, there's so many. We do like big blue sky dreaming sessions every year. And like every year it's, because of course, like when we build up the festival site, it's like running a small city, right? Like we've got tents and we've got, we've got our own security team and we do all these things. And we joke like, okay, what's Fringe University look like? Oh, if we're going to have a Fringe University, we need Fringe Uber. And like, what does that look like? But truly though, I think the big dream over the next little while is to build up the Arts Barns, to truly turn it into a creative hub for artists. We have the gift of 3 theaters in that space and 2 rehearsal studios. We, right at the onset of the pandemic, which is not a good strategic business move, we opened a cafe in our lobby. Wow. We learned a lot in that time. But the cafe is still there, and we've built it as a loiter positive space where you don't have to spend money to be there. So you can just you can come in, plug in your laptop, work on your next great project. But for us, it's like, how do we maximize that space? How do we truly fill it with artists, invite them in and ask them what they need to succeed? We have dreams of like a rooftop garden so that we can support the cafe and feed our community. We have dreams of more rehearsal space because that is hard to come by in the city.
It's never enough.
It's never enough. And like offering that at a highly subsidized rate to our community. It is, we run in the winter months something called the Human Library, where artists can come and take out our staff or other mentors in the community, and we'll make that connection for them. But my wildest dream truly is that the Arts Barns are full and busy every day, and that there is a constant sense of creation and connection happening in that space.
I love it.
Yeah.
So maybe what is like one last thing you'd like to say or one last sentiment for the people before we kind of wrap things here up today?
Just like an enthusiastic invitation to come Fringe with us. I know 216 shows can feel daunting, but we have this wonderful thing on our website. It's called the Fringe Magic 8 Ball. And if you give it a shake, it will choose a show at random for you. Yeah, nice. It's so cool. So if you don't know where to start there. Okay. Or just talk to our awesome box office volunteers. They will help guide your experience. Okay. But I promise once you're there, you're not going to want to stop fringing.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for hanging out with us today. And thank you guys for hanging out with us today. If you have any questions for Megan or for us, like please just let us know. Email, comment section. Yeah, it was just a joy hanging out with you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so everyone knows Mindbuffs will be at the Fringe volunteering this year at Community Care. So also come say hi to us.
Right on. Okay, thank you so much, guys.